Thank you so much. Mm. That music just dropped me into a physical memory of being with David and Barbara at the rally after the last gun violence in Cornhill. And at the end of our gathering, a woman stepped up to the front and just sang a spiritual, I believe. And it was such a deep reminder of how to get through tough times. So good morning. I'm Reverend Karen Brammer, and honored, happy to be here. We want to welcome you to this congregation, to this church, to this faith community. Whether you're visiting for the first time or have been a member for many years or here for 3 times, you are welcome. Whatever faiths you've known, if any, you are welcome. Whoever you are and whomever you love, you are welcome. We are invited to bring our whole selves to this worship service. Our doubts as well as our convictions, the pain and joy we have known, our longing for connection and understanding. Every part of each of us is welcome here. And we are learning to acknowledge that the land we are on is situated on the ancestral lands of the Oneida, one of the original nations of the Haudenosaunee or Iroquois people. And we are learning a little at a time what it means to be on this land, having displaced the people, and what it means to be in relationship with them. So if you're visiting with us today for the first time, either in person or online, we're glad you've joined us. We would love to learn more about you and connect you with our newsletter if you'd like. So there's a link in the chat to a form that you can use. We also have a paper registration, I guess, for you to get on our newsletter if you would like, and that's in the back. So a few announcements. After today's service, the Christmas decorations come down. Whether that's good news or bad news for you, you're welcome to come join the merry bunch who's going to put it all away in boxes again for next year. We hope some of you do stay to give a hand. And then when you walk back out, when you're ready, take a look to your right on the bulletin board right outside the sanctuary, and you'll see some maps. And the whole idea of those maps is for you to take one of the little bitty flags, write your family name on it, and stick it where you live on that map. And what we're doing is trying to figure out who the neighborhoods are in this congregation, so that if things happen so that we can't communicate by cell phone or by email, that we'll be able to find each other as neighbors. It is the emergency preparation team that is organizing ourselves this way. So it's also, the kindergartner in me really loves this project. So I hope you put your name up there. So now let's open our hearts and minds to the experience of community and the wisdom of love. David, would you mind lighting the chalice? Would that be all right? You can use the flame here if you'd like. Sorry to spring that on you. We light this chalice of beloved space. Comes from Jan Carpenter Tucker in a little book called Black Lives Unitarian Universalist Notes. She writes, brave space, a hope, a prayer, a wish, a place where words are spoken, tears are shed, hearts rendered, dreams realized. We light this chalice for the creation of brave space among us. And now I'll invite you to try on your, I think, Chinese headset and join together in singing. Oh, not yet. You can wear your Chinese headset for this song on 110, but it's not necessary. So in the hymn book that is the blue, on 1010 is the song we're inviting you to sing, and take it away, Melissa.
All right, we're going to sing this 3 times through. On the second time, we're going to take it way down. And then the third time, I want to wake up the neighborhood. You can stand as you're willing and able. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. We give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day.
Whew. Thank you, thank you. Please be seated, if you can stand it. Beautiful. For the call to worship, I'm also using words from, it's called Blue Notes, Black Lives Unitarian Universalist, a book that's edited by Takia Nur Amin and Michael Slack. They write quite simply, we worship the holy, that thing that unites us and the energy or spirit that binds us. We worship that which arrives to call us into deeper relationship with and care for one another. The spirit of life that arises in community that cannot be explained totally in words or contained in any singular tradition. Some call it God and some don't call it anything at all. And the wide swath of understanding within and beyond these perspectives is too bountiful to attempt. We endeavor to make a space that is elastic, dynamic, love-centered, and worthy enough of our full diasporic humanity to foster a culture of mutuality, respect, and consent. May it be so. And I've asked Matt to help me out with a together time, which is something I learned from, come forward, Matt, if you dare. This also from an Eastern culture. So Matt being the monk, me being the novice, I approach Matt and say, I don't understand and I need to learn more. And so Matt, the monk, invites me to bring a cup of tea and he'll show me. And in a beautiful way, the water pours right over the teacup because the monk says, that's plenty. The monk has made his point that if I come to the monk with my mind already full, there's no room to learn more. Thank you. Yeah, that'd be great. Good luck with that. The monk is going to drink from this cup of wisdom. Another reading from Black Lives Unitarian Universalist Notes. The movement for Black Lives calls on the Unitarian Universalist faith, a faith willing to make the bold proclamation that each person inherently matters. Black Lives call on the UU faith to live up to that claim by working toward a future in which Black lives are truly valued in our society. We call on UUs to actively resist notions that Black lives only matter if conformed to white middle-class norms, and to challenge assumptions of worth centered around clothing, diction, education, or other status. Our value, they write, is not conditional. This beautiful book that helps me understand in poetry and prayer is easily available through our Unitarian Universalist Association. Just jump online and look for Black Lives Unitarian Universalist, Blue Notes. Paula Cole-Jones is a longtime member of the Washington, D.C. All Souls congregation. She is a Black woman who has worked as a consultant to address racism with Unitarian Universalists and staff for 15 years. She observed over those years with thousands of Unitarian Universalists and hundreds of congregations that it was possible to understand oneself as following the 7 principles and follow them well, yet not even think about systemic racism. We collectively care about beloved community, but beloved community requires that we address systemic oppression. Paula Cole-Jones proposed the addition of the 8th principle, which we're talking about today, to help us commit not only to our 7 principles, but to beloved community as well. And I'm going to look at our order service. What you see here is the covenant on the back of your order service, and there will be a time during this sermon for you to refer to that. If you're not familiar with the 7 principles, open up the gray hymnal, and you can turn, maybe 5 pages, and you'll find we, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote. Those are our principles. There are 7 of them in the book. The 8th principle is what we're talking about today. The congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Utica adopted its version of the 8th principle. Was it 2 years ago now? Something like 2 years ago. These are the words. We covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. And since adopting the 8th principle, we collectively have been working to understand how committing to this 8th principle might change who we are, how we function, what we do. Representatives of our UU congregation and those in the region are gathering on February 25 to learn how we might incorporate the 8th principle into our faith communities and our individual lives. And every one of us is welcome. All are invited. I will participate, and the board plans to support anyone who wishes to participate. Check the church newsletter for more information, and I hope you consider really participating in it and coming. This is one of the many ways our faith community is working to live into the 8th principle. I have been Unitarian Universalist long enough to imagine that I hear a collective sigh or moan, maybe even a shudder of dread in response to the idea that we are being called to change. We've been having growing pains for decades now, appropriately. We've been challenged by the women of our denomination to deal with internalized sexism and internal sexism. We've been dealing for a long time now with LGBTQ plus needs and gifts for our denomination and on. And so we're looking at our 8th principle now and trying to figure out what it means about how we change. So one of the reasons that people shudder in dread when we're asked collectively to change is that too often we very well-intentioned people jump on each other, sometimes aggressively, sometimes not with great thought, when one of us makes a mistake. I'm still learning to intervene with as much love as I can muster, and I make mistakes. So will you. We well-intentioned people can be reactive, defensive, and angry when we are called out or corrected, especially if we're called out in what feels like harsh ways. When these things happen, trust can deteriorate because we tend to avoid conflict. So when we are corrected or when we want to help someone else live more in covenant, we will tend to not talk with each other beyond what feels like a hurt, perhaps. Trust can deteriorate, feelings can get hurt, resentment and pain can fester, and it is possible for congregations to break or for relationships to break unless we learn skills to listen with heart and speak truth with compassion. We can learn to center ourselves in the need for change when we also grow in the context of knowing that we are loved. When we grow within community that loves us actively, when we know that love is intended through our covenants, it's worth more risk to try and change. Lots harder if that love is not there. Today, many of you who are here today crafted the covenant into words, and that's what is on the back of your order of service. So that was crafted with much care and with many people, and now we work to create covenantal space. We cannot claim that the covenantal space will always feel safe for everyone, because what feels safe to you may not feel safe to me or to another. And so I don't claim safe space. Instead, I hope to build covenantal, brave space. Space where we can practice honesty and humility. Brave space that encourages us to grow as we learn that we are loved. Our mainstream, basically competitive culture tends not to teach these skills, she says in an understated way. So here in Faith Community, we ask love to guide us to covenantal, brave space. A few members of this congregation will be working with all of us over time to create ways to build covenantal, brave space. 2 of them are here, Roz Kearney and Jack Pendrak, actually in the same row. I don't know what that means. They're going to be thinking together with John Camilleri to begin imagining what a path for this congregation might look like to learn the skills, to flex the muscles that help us live more with conflict, honestly, and with compassion, and to work through what feels like difficult conversation. Maybe the process will be called right relations. Maybe it'll be completing the circle, maybe something completely different. But we know that stating our covenant is only one step in the process of living our covenant and becoming who we say we want to become in community. Adopting the 8th principle is one step in the process of becoming beloved community. Like the already full teacup, becoming beloved community may take a bit of willingness to either pour out some of what we have in our heads and hearts that we assumed was true, or acquire bigger teacups. But here's an example from my years of experience with Unitarian Universalism. The experience is not limited to one congregation. It's not limited to one person or one minister. In multiple congregations and in conversation with ministers, I've intentionally used the word woke. The word tends to create a reaction. Folks who consider themselves educated tend to judge the word as wrong and even obnoxious. Some folks get uncomfortable and others get angry. It's not correct English. Some of us find our comfort, maybe our self-respect, and even our status connected to the correct use of the English language. That is true not only in our congregations, but the ministers as well. Woke is a word made up and used primarily by Black people who are learning and articulating how systemic racism has impacted their entire lives and entire communities for centuries. In my understanding, which is limited, to be woke implies one does not deny the reality of racism in every layer of our being. That one does constant internal work to realize the layers and layers of impact inside ourselves, inside our neighborhoods, inside the church, inside the school, in the world. No matter the color of our skin. The systems have been created so that no matter who we are, we will be impacted by systemic racism. And I have another quick personal thing here. As a lesbian, when I first realized 30-some years ago that I am lesbian, I became very conscious of the things, the tapes that were stuck in my head about who LGBTQ plus people were and are. I had to work at unlearning them. So I don't have judgment about people having those tapes, racist, age inappropriate, whatever your tapes are saying that create a distance or a judgment about other people. I don't blame you for having that tape in your head. It's our culture. But we do have a responsibility to watch for when those tapes are playing and when we are inclined to act using those tapes or when we can change those tapes. Systemic racism, those tapes we all take in, has built invisible walls and structures, and plenty of visible ones too, that lock people into positions of power and disempowerment. High self-esteem, low self-esteem, valuation, devaluation. A person who is woke rejects the normalcy of racist structures and wrestles with the language that hides power imbalance. It is not an easy thing to let go of our attachment to correct English if that matters to us, if we think it's right. Language is just one example among so many ways of correctness being taught to keep some in and others out. And to tell you the truth, Rogers' Rules of Order is another one. There are many functions that are basic to our congregational life that when we really look at them, when we really ask people who have not assumed those are the right ways of acting, we learn that some of those structures are designed to keep people out. What does it feel like to know that it's possible, even likely, that we will be confronted to change something that we thought was good? It's a bit nerve-wracking sometimes. But in the context of love and humility, we can hope in a covenantal community that there's room for mistakes. There's a sense of humor about making mistakes and learning to take responsibility. Understanding we're not responsible for what we were taught, those tapes in our heads, but we have the capacity to decide to change also helps. I suspect we as a community of faith are going to be studying the eighth principle in different ways for years to come. Because we know it's necessary to evolve, maybe we will need to be humble enough to pour out some of the tea in the overfull teacup of our minds as we incorporate more complex truth, as we learn what love demands. Humility and joy, I propose. When I learned of Maurice Mitchell's work, I felt a deep resonance of what he wrote, which is there are things we can and must do to shift movements for justice towards a powerful posture of joy and victory. And I would say the same for congregations like ours. There are things we can and must do to shift our faith community toward a powerful posture of joy and victory. Victory of love over fear and hate, victory of curiosity over prejudice, victory of growth over stalemate and stagnation. A posture of joy? We do the hard work of trying to make a difference in this life because we love life. We value life and are amazed by its magnificence. Even when the bombs are falling, Ukrainian communities practice love of life. Even when Black communities here in the U.S. are targeted for prison and lose their children to gun violence, while grief, stress, and anger percolate, so does brilliant organizing, mutual aid, fabulous dance, and vibrant jazz, soul, and spirituals. We do the hard work of trying to make a difference in this life because we love life. We value life and are amazed by its magnificence. So we lit the chalice this morning for beloved and brave space rather than safe space, because what is safe to me is not necessarily going to be safe for you. So we celebrate moving toward a space that, in the words of Takia Nouramin and Michael Slack, is elastic, dynamic, love-centered, to foster a culture of mutuality, respect, and consent. This space of mutuality is, after all, a space in which we would learn to honor many differences, cultural differences, differences of ability, differences in how our brains function, differences in how we express ourselves, differences in how we experience and react to the same moment. As we explore what it means to live the eighth principle, we explore what it means to create brave space in which the value of every person is not conditional, but where our differences rub into each other and we learn how to value the differences and grow toward living in covenant. We do not expect each other to be someone else, but we do anticipate that we will all evolve with loving care. There's room for joy here and amazement in the magnificence of life's diversity. And as we learn to live with and act in ways that honor the eighth principle, we'll sometimes feel unsure. We may feel a sense of discomfort and disruption of what we believed was normal or good. And we may also experience our hearts and our minds growing. We may see our capacity expand for welcome and understanding. Expansion of our minds can inspire hope in ourselves and one another. May we feel a kind of flow, an opening toward real change in and around us and in the world that celebrates the diversity of this life. May that be so for us all. In the name of all that is holy and in all the holy names, blessed be, Ashe, and Amen. Now here is a tune that comes, that echoes the east. Faith is a forest, and we're going to do a little rehearsal here with Melissa and Bob's help.
Bob is going to play this slightly different than you might be used to melody all the way through for you once, and then we're going to go ahead and try to sing it, which you should do at whatever capability and octave feels good to you. Please rise as you're willing and able.
It's really lovely to hear from those of you who are online. It reminds us that the collective we goes way beyond these walls. The last candle is for the joys and concerns that still remain in our hearts, silently, but quite real. Michael Slack, one of the editors of that beautiful book that I've been reading from, Blue Notes, writes this: spirit of wonder and power, great love that has wrapped us up in the magic of our presence here together, we offer our deep gratitude. For the earth and the life in abundance she makes way for this moment and for these people, for the time we have together to laugh, to cry, to break bread, cut up, learn and grow together, for the things we always manage to do when we get together, open hearts, believe in the impossible, feel with our whole everything, a joy too often unattainable when we are apart from one another. For all of the people in our lives whose prophetic words and deeds have paved the way for our dreams, our insights, and this gathering to take place. May all that we are and all that we bring, every bit of joy and triumph, every ounce of uncertainty and heartache, carry us through, offer us every lesson we may need to be healing forces within our own selves, within our communities, here and beyond, and out in the world. What a great blessing it is to be together. Ashe, Amen. Blessed be. May the offering that our ushers collect this morning serve to build brave, covenantal space for us all and for those who are not here yet. Thank you, Bob. Would you read from the Extinguishing the Chalice as I snuff out our chalice, please? We extinguish. Again, the words of Takia Nuramin and Michael Slack. We worship that which arrives to call us into deeper relationship for one another, for the spirit of life that arises in community that can't be explained. As we leave one another today, may we carry with us a sense of this deeper relationship with and care for one another. And may we leave changed and held by that love. May it be so. Amen.